be back with you. Yes, recording in progress. It's great to be back with you to cover some aspects of evaluations that I think would help you and help organize your thoughts. If you recall in our first session, I emphasized this is going to be my 4 Ps of evaluation. And we covered the first 2, which were preparation and principles. And I'm going to share my screen with you if that's okay. And I got to get there we go. Okay. And we covered the first 2. I want to just remind you what those were. They were preparation and principles. Preparation involved ideally reading the assignment if you're the evaluator beforehand, perhaps getting together with the speaker, and also working with the general evaluator and the vice president of education to make sure that evaluators are lined up with the speaker's skills. One thing we try to avoid in Columbine Toastmasters is having a beginner evaluate an advanced speech because that can be intimidating sometimes. And then I want to jump back on my slides here to the principles and just run through those real quick. Again, principle, you must be kind. You can't hammer people. It doesn't work. Feedback must be specific. We heard quite a bit of that in our evaluations tonight. And then feedback must be what I call directional in nature. And that is, it's not enough just to say, this didn't work for me. What I want to hear you say is, how am I going to fix that? What direction do you need to go to, I feel that you could improve? So with those in mind, let's move on to the final 2 Ps, which are practice and presentation. And by practice, I mean, how do you organize your thoughts for a presentation? I find in my new members in Columbine, this is probably what intimidates them the most. How do I organize my thoughts so that I can get up there and give a good evaluation? And I'm going to start out with, I always joke, it's a very simple method. And one thing I want to remind you about this program is that this is one method of evaluating. It's not the method. It's a method. You're going to find things that are much more comfortable for you to do. But I always joke that I asked them to write this very technical diagram here. And when I evaluate this, I just do this on my notebook. I write the 3 lines across and the 1 line up and down. And the top line, again, is your introduction. What did you like about their introduction? What could they have done a little bit better? And again, be specific. The middle part here, I have the pluses. What did you like about the speech? And what could they work on? And again, this is where you're going to also come up with your specific ideas, your direction, what I call your directional in nature. And then your final box down at the bottom is, how did they wrap the speech up? Was it effective? Did they do a recap? Again, an idea, what did you like about it? What could they have done a little bit better? I always joke, this is just a technical thing. A Toastmaster club that I was in showed me this diagram back in 1988. And I've been using it ever since. Now, one thing I want to emphasize is that you're going to take a lot of notes, ideally, especially on the speech part and the pluses and the work-ons. And we're going to talk about this in the presentation, but I just want you to remember, you don't have to cover everything that you write about. Pick the 2 or 3 that you think are most important. After the meeting or in an email later on, since this club is primarily online, send the speaker a note. Here are some other thoughts I had about your speech. Or again, if you're in person, you can grab the speaker and say, here are some additional thoughts I had. You don't have to cover everything. So that's really the down low on how do you organize your thoughts? And again, the things we're looking for, eye contact, gestures, body language, volume, pace. And you heard many of these things in the evaluations tonight. So again, I think your club, you guys are well on your way with evaluations. I hear very specific things. I hear kind things. I hear how how you think they could make these things better, which is very important to me. Now, finally, presentation. I want you to keep in mind that an evaluation is a mini speech. Therefore, it should have a prepared opening. And here's the one thing I want you to avoid. It's the cliche openings. And the one that is famous in Toastmasters is, "Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, and especially the speaker." This is a speech. You need to be creative with it. And I'm going to tell you a story. I was judging a district evaluation contest. A woman came out and said exactly that. And then it was a good sized audience, probably 150 people. And then she looked around and said, especially Mr. Speaker, she said, "Where are you?" I almost fell out of my chair because that's a terrible opening. And I'm going to be honest with you, I marked her down very heavily just because of that on the judging form. So again, opening, make it relevant to the speech. Something interesting about it that you can relate to, that the audience can relate to. Again, the body, the key points. What did you do that worked very well? What didn't work for you? And keep in mind, evaluations are subjective. It's okay that I felt that this was not effective. It's subjective. And then again, what direction do they need to go? And again, the conclusion. I want to hear a conclusion that you thought out, not and I can't wait for your next speech. Because again, it's trite, it's lame, and an evaluation is a speaking opportunity. I want you to treat it just like a speech that you would prepare an opening for, you would have an organized body, and then you would have a summary conclusion of some kind. A couple things, again, I want you to remember that an evaluation is not a rehash of the speech. I heard the word analytical tonight from Alan, our general evaluator, which I thought was great. An evaluation is an analytical exercise, not a summary, and as I say, a rehash. I want you to do analysis on this. And again, I want you to keep in mind that no lame openings. And again, another thing to use with the evaluations, again, so you organize your thoughts is, we always call it the sandwich method. Talk about a good thing that they did. Talk about something they could work on. Talk about a good thing, something they could work on. You sandwich them together, but you always finish on a positive note. So again, this is a system that I use. Something was taught to me many, many years ago. And as I've told you before, I've been around this organization for 40 years now. It helps me organize my thoughts. And again, just to kind of wrap this up, I want you to stick to the principles that we talked about. This is that kind of how the different section of how I run this seminar. And we're going to talk more about that and do it in another meeting where Barack is going to give a speech, and then we're going to actually talk about kind of picking his speech apart from a introduction, from a body thing, what was good, what didn't work, and then also a conclusion. And then we're going to do the same thing with one of the speeches in your club, and we're going to do a round robin and try and hit on the same principles. So again, stick to the principles, prepare for the evaluation, practice. Try using the box and just see how it works for you. As I said, this is a method, not the method. Toastmasters has a lot of literature on evaluations, and personally, I think it's weak. They don't actually write about how to organize your thoughts and how to present it. I've never seen that in any of the materials in my 40 years. And then present this as a mini speech. This is a speaking opportunity. And I want to emphasize that because every role in a meeting is a speaking opportunity, not just the speeches. An evaluator is a speaking opportunity. The general evaluator is. The timer is a speaking opportunity. Grammarian is a speaking opportunity. I want you to have that kind of attitude with each of the roles. So again, I emphasize this is a framework. You are going to find methods that are more comfortable to you, and that's okay. And then use them. So one thing too I want to talk about is, where else might you use this in real life? Because if you recall at the beginning of this, when we did the first two, I emphasized to you that I didn't want you to be a good Toastmaster evaluator. I want you to be a good evaluator in the real world too. And that's important. So where else might you use this? Anyone want to jump in on that? Any ideas?
Hi, Jim. I mean, I think for me, I would apply a lot of what you're saying in terms of performance appraisal.
Oh, Alan, that's a big one. That is a big one. Absolutely. That's on my list here, actually.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
performance.
hope I do apply a lot of this when I've had to play that role.
I did a lot. Yeah. And also, I think, Jim, I would apply that as well in any kind of difficult conversations that you need
Ooh,
to hold, not
yeah,
only with the employees, but also in a private and personal setting.
great idea. We would think about the difficult communication situations. If you organize your thoughts, somewhat this way quickly and even in your head, it would make going through those difficult conversations a lot easier. I'm going to give you another good example of where someone in my club used this after we did this presentation. She was in a seminar, and the person who was leading the seminar asked for a volunteer to, in essence, take notes about ideas and things that came out. And what Karen did is she drew her little box, wrote the things she liked about what was going on and things that could be worked on. She actually used the box method to give feedback in a seminar rather, not a webinar. This was an in-person meeting. So yeah, there are many places, even just what about giving feedback to your boss? There's another sensitive situation where, and they may even ask you, say, hey, I need you to think about this idea that we have, and talk to me in a half an hour or 40 minutes about it. And if you have ideas and thoughts about it, hey, this is what I don't think works about your idea. But then again, this is something that I think works really well and maybe how we can improve it. Okay, it works the same.
Yeah. And I did use that in an evaluation or with my son when he couldn't decide whether to go for a job or not. Can you imagine? So I had that box, literally, I draw it, and then we went through it. What is the plus, the good things about this? What's not? What's here? What there? So that worked out.
So what was the decision? Did he go for the job?
Yeah,
Fantastic.
mother
Uh,
influence a bit, but that's okay.
yeah. So this applies again. I know it sounds counterintuitive when I say I don't want you to be a good evaluator in Toastmasters. Yes, of course I do, but we're here in Toastmasters to learn skills that help us out in the real world. And if you can give feedback and evaluate people in a consistent manner that improves things and makes things better on the job or in your family life or relationships, that's what we're here for. So any other questions on evaluations? I just want to open up the floor to that. We went through this pretty quickly. Now, I think, Meltem, I think you have my file on this, the PowerPoint program. Is that correct or not? Did Brock forward that to you?
We don't have, I think. Can you send us again?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. By all
Thank
means,
you.
we'll send it to you. Yes. This is not, anyone can use this. Feel free to do what you want with it. If someone wants to use it in a presentation, I'm all for that. If they want to alter it for that, again, this is something that I was taught way back in the 80s when a club I was with was struggling. We were not giving very good evaluations, and the president and the vice president of education got together and said, look, we need to step up our game, and this is how one way you can do it. So it stuck with me that long.
Would you like to
Jim, I would like to add something.
Please.
Why evaluation right after the speeches? Because then the speaker's mind is fresh, everything is fresh. So solid evaluation is a great improvement tool for the speakers. That's the reason why we do evaluation, because Toastmaster is experiential learning. Our speakers come up with ideas and techniques. As soon as they receive the evaluation, then the next couple of speeches, they will remember those remarks. The other point that I would like to make about an evaluation is a speech itself. That's for the members, listeners. So the evaluator opens up his or her evaluation with an opening because it's a good idea for the members also to follow the evaluation, because it's not just for the speaker. Evaluation is
Right.
not for the speaker. That's why opening and closing to draw our listeners' attention is very, very important. These are some subtle differences between where the distinguished clubs may progress significantly, because we have the ability to actually anchor learning opportunities effectively into our listeners' minds.
Mhm. Thank you, Brock. Those are great ideas. Any other comments, questions? Thought I heard someone else chime in there before Brock. No? Okay. So that wraps up the evaluation seminar, if you want to call it that. I had asked Meltem if I could make a few comments about Distinguished Club Plan, and not comments about her speech, but about DCP in general. As someone who has been around, like I said, as long as I have, and this rolled out from the International probably, I'm going to say 98 or 99, 1998. I was an area governor at the time, and I had to go out and teach this to clubs. But the one thing I want to emphasize about DCP is it's not a paper chase. You're not just doing things to do things. If you look at Distinguished Club Plan, you'll notice that 6 of the goals have to do with people moving through the program and succeeding, achieving levels, level 1, level 2, all the way up to level 5. And then if they decide to keep going on, they can actually complete another pathway and maybe even become a district officer. But DCP is about people achieving things. And it's because primarily they're doing speeches. The other goals, so 6 of the goals are people achieving things. 2 goals one goal has to do with membership, keeping your membership up, which is always important. And the others are administrative, which include filing your officer reports on time and paying your dues on time, administrative things. But what I've found as a past district officer is that the clubs that do these things are very successful. They plan DCP out. The officers have meetings about it. This is not just a paper chase. It's for the benefit of the club. People have asked me, why is Columbine successful? And we are. I mean, right now we have 25, 28 members, something like that. But we're successful because we follow DCP and we get people involved in doing their speeches and other things. So it's not just a paper chase. It's important to the club. And achieving 9 goals is fantastic because that's the highest level. That's called President's Distinguished. And that is great recognition for the club. And it means you're doing things right. With that, Meltem, I'll turn it back to you, Madam President. It has to do more with the content, not with the not so much with the organization. I heard everybody was very kind, first of all. So the principles, be kind, be specific. Our evaluators tonight were very specific about things that they liked and things that they thought needed improvement. And again, my directional in nature principle, I heard people practicing that tonight. They made a comment about something and said, this is how I think you might have been more effective. And that's what people want to hear is, again, how can they be more effective? So in terms of the evaluations, I think this club is doing a very good job. I really think you guys are. Now, let's start taking the other concepts of it. Prepare an opening. Then you have your middle part, which you guys are doing very well. And last, come up with a conclusion, just like a mini speech. That to me would be the club's next step in evaluations. So, and then, as far as the speeches go, one thing I want you to think about is very often people open their speeches with the thank you, Madam or Mr. Toastmaster or whatever, things like that. I want you to move away from that. I want you to have a prepared opening that is powerful and gives us an idea where you're going with the speech. And then if you do want to say thank you after that, but I want you to open with that hard-hitting opening line. And, for example, tonight, Murat's speech, but he opened with the thank you for the club, everything like that. But his second line of the speech was, let's imagine. Now, think back to that. What if he had opened with that and said, let's imagine that? You would have been like, oh, wow, I want to know what I'm supposed to imagine. So instead of the typical, oh, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, Madam Toastmaster, prepare that powerful opening. And here's the other thing that it does. When you have that powerful opening and you've memorized it, it's a catharsis. If you're nervous, but you pull off that opening line, it's going to be and the rest of the speech is going to be much easier.
Mm-hmm. And first of all, I would appreciate, really commend you, Zara, for asking Jim to evaluate the evaluators. What I would like to share this, why Jim said, go with a hard opening. Why this is important, because what happens, as you understand, we use neuroscience to better understand communication theory and science of communication. Neuroscience tells us that human subconscious mind is an electromagnetic field. It collects information, is constantly active. When we're faced with a speaker and the speaker does not have a strong opening, then the subconscious mind continues operating on its own. As a speaker, our goal to draw the attention of listeners. That's why the hard opening, interesting, imagine, or togetherness, these type of techniques is to actually bring the minds to our context.
I have a second question for you. I don't know in which part. I like the diagram. So actually to have the first introduction, 2 parts, and conclusion, where we should put, or does it have any place based on what you taught us regarding to evaluation, the style of speech, whether it is informative, inspirational, or the other types of it? Should we bring it? Should we put it, emphasize on that, or no? And where should we put it? In introduction?
This is a great question because it gets back to what was the purpose of the speech that the evaluator read beforehand.
Objective of the speech, yes.
Yeah, what's the objective? And I think that's a great way to kind of open a speech where something along the line of, Brock's speech tonight was supposed to inspire us. And I don't know about you, but I walked away from his speech wanting to do, whatever it was he talked about. That's a great way to open a speech and tie it in. It could be the opening line or it could be like a second line in the opening. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dear Jim, thanks so